something too at the switch.
What a marvellous kitchen. Do show me how everything works. Mother never lets me do a stroke in the house, you know, so that if ever I take a place of my own, I shall have to either eat fruit or starve.
Not nowadays, darling. Cooking's just become a matter of pressing the right button. Plenty of time, then plenty of time. Plenty of time for play. Woman's place was in the home, but now she's out all day.
Made in the 30s, this film optimistically predicted a future where homes would be chore-free and all electric by the 1950s.
Plenty of time, plenty of time, plenty of time for play.
But in post-war Britain, this vision was still the stuff of fantasy.
I can start to iron 24 shirts for you can count from 1 to 9.
Women spent over 2/3 of their waking hours on housework. Without electric appliances, keeping houses clean and warm was time-consuming and arduous.
Coal came in big lumps, and you had to actually chop it, so the coal dust got up your nose and in your eyes, and you had your hair always tied up in a turban when you did the coal fires. And it doesn't matter how hard you tried, the coal dust would still penetrate. So to keep yourself clean, I'd often dust the house twice a day. My granddad used to get quite, oh, you'll go. I'll put some newspaper in your coffin when you go, Gelbach, because I was always cleaning the grate with newspaper to keep it clean.
Well, to do your washing then, there was no other way but to wash it with a rubbing board. And of course we didn't have rubber gloves and all things like that then. You just have to, that was jolly hard work. You really had to rub it, and coloured things couldn't be boiled, so you had to rub them until you got the dirt out. And that was jolly hard, that was really hard. So when we went to see a film, when it was usually the American ones, they had all the lovely kitchens and, oh, heaven, great big larder fridge, and they'd open the fridge and all that lovely food. And somebody would be ironing, it would be so easy.
And tell him that his lonesome nights are over.
You'd come home and think, God, I wish I had a fridge like that, or I wish I had an iron like that. And as for a Hoover, I mean, that was going to be even heaven again.
Please turn on your magic beam, Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream.
But life at home meant going without. Rationing was even more severe than during the war. Purchase tax, sometimes as much as 100%, was imposed on all goods. On top of that, the public were asked to conserve electricity to help industry. The Americans were 20 years ahead of us in electrical technology. Their newsreel footage showed hard-up Brits doing without.
At trade fairs publicizing the export program, the British people are free to look at comforts and conveniences they long to enjoy, but they cannot buy them at any price. For the money these goods can bring overseas is the nation's chief hope of staving off economic disaster. For years to come, the British people realize they must do without so that their country can survive.
The war left the country in heavy debt for over a decade. The export program was designed to bring money back into the economy.
Export, export, you say? Must all good things in Britain go abroad? The answer is yes and no. The great majority must, and among them are, of course, pressed cold refrigerators. Good Housekeeping, 1949.
Even if you could afford a fridge, plugging it in might have blown your circuits. Existing wiring standards were dreadful, having been installed in a haphazard way since the 1920s. Electrical appliances could have 3 different types of plugs with 10 different amperages.
You know, we really shouldn't use that light point for the toaster. We've got a point in the wall.
Yes, it would be better, but you still haven't fixed the proper plug to the toaster. I can't use it until you have.
It was quite an expense to have a new plug put in. You probably had one point in a room and a central overhead socket. And you may well have had all sorts of Heath Robinson, I'm sure, highly dangerous arrangements with adapters if you want to be very advanced and have standard lamps or table lamps. There's flex trailing all over the floor.
Bill and I have fitted the pin plug to the toaster, dear. You can use it in its proper place now.
Oh, that's fine.
Well, now can I go on the main switch?
Yes, dear.
To prepare for the days when goods would be plentiful, people in older houses were encouraged to update their wiring and install sockets. Electricity was to be the lifeblood of modern homes. New regulations in 1950 ensured newly built houses would have ring mains wiring and standardized sockets.
There must be a sufficient number of socket outlets for full use to be made of electric labor-saving appliances. This is most important, for it costs far less to put them in at the start than it does to add them later. And where possible, the new universal 13-amp 3-pin fused plugs should be used.
Violet Tolley was relieved to leave her gas-lit rooms behind when she moved to a modern home.
We got the letter to move on Christmas Day to Harlow, Newtown. We'd been allocated this house, like, you know, and I hadn't seen it. My husband had seen it because he worked here, but I hadn't seen it. And we came on a snowy, cold, really horrible day from these dingy 2 rooms, and I hated it. It was horrible. Down to Harlow, and I walked in this house at Cleveland's, and it was magic. I went running around, switching all the lights on, and on the landing, I had a light on the landing, and that was just, that alone was lovely.
As coal shortages gradually eased, Britain's newly nationalised industry began to promote the use of electricity zealously. They desperately needed to persuade people to use more units so that the price of power would reduce for both industrial and domestic users. Electric consumption became a patriotic duty.
The theme is power, electric power, to carry Britain's reputation to the world's end and keep our country prosperous in a new Elizabethan age. Country Life, 1953.
In the same year, the Chancellor ended the country's self-imposed period of austerity when he reduced income tax and slashed purchase tax. Basic electric appliances began to creep back into the shops.
You went to pay your electric bill, and whilst you were in there, you saw all these lovely things in the showrooms which are now coming in, and you thought, oh, that's what I'm going to save for next.
Jean Evans' husband ran a small electrical store. They were both enthusiastic about the possibilities of electricity in the home.
He hated gas. He didn't like gas at all, and he wanted everything electrical. And we tried to get the gas taken out, and they wouldn't. But otherwise, he put extra points and did all the things, and we had all the equipment that we could get at that time because he wanted to be as up-to-date as possible.
Well, this is the original fireplace as it was built when the house was built. And originally we had a coal fire there. We did away with the coal fire. We had the electric fire, which we just have to switch on. That's how you switch it on, of course. And then it has a coal effect thing that goes round and round. Well, this is the original lamp we had when we first came here, and my husband made it. And this is the radiogram we had soon after we came here. And it's still going strong.
But after years of scrimping and saving, the general public were unfamiliar with the appliances now on the market. Electrical demonstrators were on hand to educate and help out in dealers' showrooms.
We were really keen to serve. We used to get so thrilled if we did something that helped somebody. And I can remember somebody coming into one of the showrooms wanting to buy an electric light bulb. And he happened to mention cleaning. And I then thought, vacuum cleaner is what this man needs. So I trotted off with him to the vacuum cleaner area, promptly demonstrated the vacuum cleaner, and he went out with a light bulb and a vacuum cleaner. And I was so pleased for him.
We only had an one fire, so the rest of the room and the rest of the house was cold. And when I got the kids out of the bath, I mean, it was horrific. I used to have to run them down and with a towel around them and dry and put the nightie on in front of the fire. And then we went to the electric showroom at the town and saw the heat and lighting that you could fix on the ceiling in the bathroom, which kept the bathroom warm while you got them out of the bath.
All electricity showrooms had a demonstration theatre, and we would have an invited audience once a week. Anyone could come, and we'd have all the seats laid out on a platform, and the purpose, of course, was for us to sell electrical appliances, the cooker or a food mixer, and so on.
Well, that's clean enough, isn't it? Your saucepans stay clean, your kitchen stays clean, and the air you breathe stays fresh. Cleanliness and economy are two of the virtues of cooking by electricity.
They were a jolly good way of introducing electricity to people and to show them what you could actually do with the appliances. And people really were learning a new way of cooking. They cooked by gas for many years, and this was a silent fuel.
You'll find a good range of electric cookers on easy purchase terms at your local service centre.
Oh, she made it look so easy. The pastry, you mean? No, using electricity.
We had a lot of middle-class, upper-class ladies coming in to see demonstrators. And, of course, if you think about it, until the war, they probably had servants all the time. And then suddenly these poor women couldn't have servants, and they had to learn how to cook and how to wash.
You try to suggest I don't know how to iron a collar?
Yeah, no.
You think I'm a washout as a wife?
Oh, no, I don't. You're not a washout as a wife. It's just your washing that's a washout.
Oh, why don't you say the whole house is dirty? Well, go on, say it.
Say the whole house is dirty?
Yes.
The whole... No, but it isn't dirty. Not the whole of it.
Oh, have you any idea the work there is to do in this house? Stairs to sweep, hall to polish, clothes to wash, and not even a daily. Some women have help in the house.
Quite right. I've got to help you more.
You!
Now that the middle-class wife was doing it for herself, housework took a jump in status. No longer something done by mere skivvies, it was elevated to the rank of a domestic science.
Millions of women in this country are being tortured. Their housework exhausts them and takes up every minute of their working day. And all because their homes aren't properly planned.
Just look at the number of journeys she's making. The meat's done, so there's a trip from the cooker to the table.
Using time and motion studies pioneered to boost manufacturing output, scientists turned their attention to the home. Step-saving research was used to improve kitchen design. Planning was in. Housewives were encouraged to be more professional in their approach. Electric appliances were promoted as part of this efficiency drive.
Forgive me, but why did you climb up a ladder to do your picture rail?
Because my arms aren't long enough to reach.
Oh, quite. But don't you use your Hoover cleaner?
My Hoover? I haven't a Hoover.
Haven't a Hoover? Good gracious. I'll get mine.
All the dirt, all the grit, Hoover gets it every bit, 'cause it beats as it sweeps as it cleans.
Until 1954, government restrictions on advertising meant door-to-door salesmen like Ted Talbot played a vital part in educating women about new appliances.
Hi, hi, hey, the kinds of dirt are three. We tell the world just
in selling Hoovers, I considered that we weren't a pest. We were an invaluable asset because we took the goods to the housewife, showed them practically how it could make the quality of their life better. Indeed, I think it did. Whilst we were servicing vacuum cleaners, we would engage the housewife in conversation. Had she brothers or sisters? Who was her closest friend and how long have they known each other? Have they got a Hoover?
The pressure on women to be efficient housewives gave salesmen the opportunity to tap their guilt about household standards as a lever to make a sale.
You're going to find dirt in everybody's house. You're going to find fluff, you're going to find dust, you're going to find grit. So tip it out onto the carpet. Good God. Do you have children? Yes. Do you realise they're playing in this germ-ridden dirt and dust? And the housewife would say, no. They say, well, when did you last see a fire? Well, most people, they don't see a fire. So she would say, no, I haven't seen a fire. And you say, are you insured against fire? And she'll say invariably, yes. And say, isn't it strange, you'll insure against fire, which you never ever see, but you seem to be objecting to insuring your children against the germs and dust that they play in every day of their lives.
No wonder more families trust their home cleaning to Hoover than any other make.
As a means to get the product on show, we were taught to knock at a house at random in a nice area with a Hoover already assembled. And you say, I've run into trouble. I've been called off to an emergency where I'll have to leave my car. But the lock on my car door is broken and I'm afraid to leave this. And would you be kind enough to look after it for me just till tomorrow? A shiny new Hoover is a great temptation. So that when you pick it up, thank you very much, you've saved my life. What did you think of it? Well, of course, she only has to say a couple of words and you're in conversation. Then you must use all your wiles. You must then pick up her touch point.
The salesman's job would have been helped if they could have offered easy purchase terms. But after the war, HP was strictly controlled by the government. In the mid-50s, restrictions were gradually eased, and all controls were completely abolished in 1958.
A couple of my friends got a fridge, and I thought, oh, it's no good, I've got to have one of those, like, you know, the milk won't go bad and the meat won't go bad. So I asked a friend to tell this guy to come and see me, and he did. And he bought this lovely white fridge on the Saturday, and my husband worked, he always worked on Saturday. And when he came in, he went just loopy. You can't have a fridge, we can't afford any more, and all the rest of it. So, because men had to sign, you weren't allowed to, you weren't at work, so you weren't allowed to sign HP things then. So the next Saturday, I waited for the man to come and say, well, you have to take it back. But he just didn't appear. So that was another week I had it, and so I got even more used to it. And 2 or 3 weeks this happened, and he just never came. And I said to one of my friends, like, because I got a bit worried there, because I thought, well, Jack's, you know, getting cross. And how would I pay the payments that were going to add up? So she said, well, you haven't got to worry, because I've asked one of the other guys, and it seems he's got put inside. So however he got them, we got them wrong, and I paid 10 bob deposit, and I never ever paid for my fridge, which I had for years and years and years.
I always wanted a Kenwood mixer because I thought it would make my life a good deal easier. And when our second son was born and I got family allowance, I decided that I would put the down payment on Kenwood, and I would use the 5 or 10 shillings a week, whatever it was we then got, to pay off the instalments over 2 years. And this is the same mixer that I have had now for 38 years.
People expected major appliances to be a once-in-a-lifetime purchase. Practicality was valued over styling and special features. Choice was limited, but products were tough and durable.
This one was the original heater that was put in when we came to Chippingfield. And it's been here ever since. And as you see, it's getting rather dilapidated, and I wish it would break down. Then I could have a new one.
Manufacturers inevitably realized they had a dismal future if goods were made too durable, and they began to make products with a shorter lifespan.
Well, I've heard of iron in water, but I've never heard of water in an iron.
This is really two irons in one, a steam iron and a dry iron.
Quite revolutionary.
It makes all other...
Special features made the old products obsolete and the new ones easier to sell. Why have a dry iron when you could have a steam one?
Zip this style when you're using it as a dry iron. It's marvellous for pressing, too. You don't have to keep damping the cloth.
As women were the principal users of appliances, manufacturers began to canvass their opinions on products.
Ideas from such surveys are incorporated in prototypes, which are then included in exhibitions of our appliances held at centres throughout the country. Housewives' organisations are invited, and their reactions and any criticisms are duly noted.
Women were very much involved in the construction of cookers, because what would happen is a manufacturer would have a test kitchen and home economists within that test kitchen baking cakes, fruit cakes, tarts, roasts, you name it. And when they were doing specific tests, if they didn't quite work correctly, they would then go along the corridor to see the engineers and say, now look here, Charlie, this oven, it doesn't quite evenly brown on the left, you'll have to rethink this, I think. And then they would redesign almost so that they were sure the performance would actually be there at the end of the day. Not only would the cooker be safe, but it would perform in a manner that women were wanting.
In the late 50s, there was a massive scientific development that vastly improved product versatility. Thermostatic controls improved heaters and irons. The spin dryer hit the market. Fridges sprouted ice boxes, and there were even ones that heated your hot water supply. Cookers now featured eye-level grills, glowing radiant rings, and automatic timers, allowing you to set it and forget it.
Well, this is not the original cooker we had when we first came here, but this one has an automatic timer, and I could put the meal in, and when I came home it was cooked. I used to lay the table in the morning, and then it was all ready when we came home.
The tabletop fitment provides a useful work surface, not only in white or cream, but in aquamarine, candy pink.
One of the really exciting things about the 50s were the colours. Up until then, everything had been white or cream, and you were lucky if you could get either. But the 50s, you got bright red scarlet, you got avocado as we know it today, blue, duck-egg blue. Appliances actually in these colours, the whole appliance. So if you wanted to, you could have a water heater, say a Creeder water heater on your wall of one colour, and you could have the appliance, the major appliance, such as the cooker, the same colour. So it would fit in with this colour scheme.
The design and styling of appliances became increasingly more important, and now the public were tempted with a wider range of goods, with ever more unusual features.
Hot Point is the refrigerator on rollers, and look how smoothly it runs.
It floats. The Hoover constellation floats on air, floats on its own cushion of air, floats with you through housework.
Yes, the Hoover
As customers were seductively invited to upgrade to fancier models, women were becoming dependent on their appliances, especially as they began to work outside the home in greater numbers.
A gentle pull, and it follows in your footsteps for perfect all-round-the-house cleaning.
I really couldn't have done without the electrical appliances because they saved me time. There was the iron, I had an ironer, and a spin dryer, of course I had, and hair dryers. There was one particular kind that you actually could have a hood on it, so you could sit, have it at the side of you, the hairdryer would be sitting on a stand, the hood would be over your head, and you could be doing your sewing or your knitting.
With the growing spread of commercial television, the showroom was now brought directly into the living room.
Advertising was now very much the thing in television, and you just yearn for them. But I'll have one of those one day. I saw these lovely machines. Say your washing machine, your fridges, your hoovers, your carpet sweepers, you name it, it was on the television.
As more products came onto the market, there was more competition and more need to distinguish one product from another, and also to give them some character. So manufacturers, and I think led by Hotpoint, started to give their machines brand names like the Countess.
I was dreaming of wash day. And all of a sudden, before my very eyes, my Hotpoint Countess disappeared. I was desperate. All that washing, some very dirty, delicate things, drip-dry shirts, each thing needing special care. So difficult without my Countess.
What a relief in the morning to discover my Hotpoint Countess safe and sound.
Companies began to spend huge amounts of advertising to keep the desire for products continuous. The resulting wave of consumer demand enabled goods to be mass manufactured for the first time. As prices came down, so sales boomed further.
It was very much a boom time, and there was choice, there was hire purchase, all sorts of things to encourage people to buy. And as time progressed, it seemed that advertising took over and there was more competition, and gradually the service, if I may call it that we were trained to give, became less so, and things started to become rather more commercial.
This mass consumerism was celebrated in this 1958 film made by the Conservative Party.
The country has never been so prosperous. The standard of living has gone up. We are better fed, better clothed. We're using more electricity. More people have motor cars, bicycles, television, and a host of other things which only a few years ago were the luxuries of the few.
In little over a decade, the nation began to take using a multitude of electrical appliances for granted. Rationing and the longing for home comforts was now a fading memory. As the 60s dawned, The Economist magazine wrote, 10 years ago, the ordinary working woman, nearly half the nation, was a slave in an antiquated kitchen. Today, mechanical slaves on the HP have sprung up around her.